The Galactic Exchange Academy on Proxima Station was supposed to be a place of unity. That was what the brochures said, anyway. Kaylin had stopped believing in brochures approximately 3 weeks into her first semester. She was Velhari, a species recognizable by their bioluminescent skin patterns that shifted color with emotion, their slender fingers, and their large, milk-white eyes that could see in near-total darkness. Beautiful by most galactic standards. Delicate by human ones, which made her a perfect target. The Drenithi boys had started small, knocking her food tray, calling her pale ghost in the hallways. By the second month, it had escalated. Now, on a Tuesday afternoon in the station's main cafeteria, one of the most public spaces on the entire orbital platform, they had crossed a line that most species would have considered unthinkable. They had knocked her meal to the floor, then told her to eat it there. Soraya watched from 2 tables away, her Velhari bioluminescence flickering a deep, humiliated violet. She was Kaylin's roommate, her best friend on this station. And she was frozen, because the 3 Drenithi males surrounding Kaylin were twice her height, their granite-gray exoskeletons practically designed for intimidation, and every other student in the cafeteria had suddenly become very interested in their own food. The ringleader, a Drenithi named Vorik, crossed his thick arms and smiled the way predators smile. "Go on, pale ghost," he said in galactic common. Food still food. Kaylin was on her knees. Not because she had fallen, because her legs had simply stopped holding her. Her skin had gone a flat, dead white, the Velhari color of total despair. Soraya's hands were shaking. She wanted to stand up. She had done the math 100 times in her head. 3 Drenithi versus 1 Velhari female. The numbers did not work in her favor. Nobody was moving. And then a chair scraped. Joe was sitting at the far end of the cafeteria with a half-eaten plate of something the station menu generously called pasta. She was 22 years old, from a mid-sized city in the American Midwest, and she had been described by her academic advisor as concerningly unbothered by social hierarchies. She had also placed 3rd in her university's arm wrestling tournament, which was less relevant, but not entirely. She had been watching for about 45 seconds. 45 seconds was, apparently, her limit. She stood up, picked up her tray, walked over to me, her study partner, a Karathi with 4 eyes and good survival instincts, and set the tray down in front of him. "Hold my beer," she said. Me blinked, all 4 eyes in sequence. "You don't have a beer. It's a figure of speech." She was already walking. The cafeteria had that specific quality of silence that happens when a large number of people collectively decide to pretend they aren't watching something. Joe walked through it like she hadn't noticed. She crossed the full length of the room, stopped directly beside Vorik, close enough that she had to tilt her head back slightly to look up at him, which she did without any visible hesitation, and looked down at Kaylin on the floor. Then she looked back at Vorik. "Hey," she said pleasantly. Vorik looked down at her the way large things look at small things. "Human, walk away." "Yeah, I heard you," Joe said. "I'm going to need you to explain something to me first." She gestured at Kaylin on the floor, at the spilled food, at the whole grotesque tableau. "What exactly is the play here? Like, what's the goal?" Vorik's jaw tightened. "This doesn't concern you." "See, that's interesting," Joe said, "because it looks like it concerns her pretty significantly." She crouched down, right there on the cafeteria floor, and started picking up the scattered pieces of Kaylin's meal, setting them back on the tray. Her movements were calm and practical, like she was picking up something she'd dropped herself. "So I guess I'm just going to help clean this up. If you touch that tray," Vorik said, his voice dropping to a register that had made smaller species flinch across 12-star systems, "you will regret it." Joe looked up at him from her crouch. Her expression was thoughtful. "You know what I find fascinating about that threat?" she said. "It assumes I'm calculating whether this is worth it to me." She stood up, holding Kaylin's tray, and handed it back to the girl on the floor with one hand while offering the other to help her stand. "I'm not. I already decided." Kaylin took her hand. Joe pulled her to her feet like it was nothing. New York had been recording since the moment Joe stood up. She was human too, stationed at Proxima on a xenobiology fellowship, and she had a habit of documenting things she found historically significant. Joe walking toward 3 Drenithi alone definitely qualified. She kept the camera steady. Vorik moved. It wasn't an attack, exactly. It was the kind of move that large beings use to communicate, a step forward, Into personal space, weight shifted forward, designed to make the smaller party back up. Jo didn't back up. She shifted her weight slightly forward too, a tiny, almost imperceptible adjustment, and looked up at him with the expression of someone who has made a decision and is at peace with it. "You're going to want to stop there," she said quietly. "You," Vorik said, "are one human female. Alone." "Okay," Jo said. "Quick question. Have you ever taken a xenobiology class? Specifically the unit on human pain tolerance?" Vorik said nothing. "We evolved," Jo said, "on a planet that was actively trying to kill us. We've got this thing. It's called the fight or flight response, and a meaningful percentage of us, when cornered, just skip the flight part entirely." She tilted her head slightly. "I'm in that percentage." The second Drenithy male, larger than Vorik, actually, leaned down slightly. "You're bluffing." "Die," Jo said to him specifically, because she had already read his station ID off his jacket when she walked over. "Because humans do things like that. I really, truly am not." The third male, hi, according to his ID, shifted uncomfortably. Drenithy read body language well. They had to. And something about this particular human's body language was sending a signal that 3 million years of predator recognition instinct was reading as incorrect. "This creature is not prey." It was Hai who said, quietly, "Vorik, station security is going to see the recording." Vorik didn't move for a long moment. Jo didn't either. Then, slowly, Vorik stepped back. "This isn't over," he said. Jo nodded. "Sure, but right now it is." She turned to Kalen, who was standing beside her with skin that had shifted from dead white to a trembling, uncertain gold. "You okay? You want to sit somewhere else?" Kalen stared at her. Her bioluminescence was cycling rapidly through colors that had no direct translation in galactic common. "Why?" she finally said. "Why did you do that?" "You don't know me." Jo shrugged, in the specific way that humans shrug when they think the answer is obvious. "You were on the floor," she said. "And you shouldn't have been." We'll process the recording later that night. She was the station's junior security officer, Karathi, efficient, deeply tired, and she had seen a lot of incident reports in her 2 years on Proxima. She had not seen many that looked like this one. She flagged it, filed it, and sent formal disciplinary notices to Vorik and his companions. She also quietly forwarded the unedited recording to the Academy's administrative board. Then she sat for a moment and watched the clip again. The part that stayed with her wasn't the confrontation. It wasn't even Jo's complete, baffling fearlessness. It was the crouching down, the picking up of the food, the offering of the hand. No calculation, no hesitation, no waiting to see which way the crowd moved. What had worked security for 6 years across 3 different stations. She had seen a lot of species react to injustice. Most of them did the math first. Humans, she was increasingly finding, occasionally just didn't. She didn't know whether that was a design flaw or the most remarkable thing about them. Soraya found Jo outside the cafeteria afterward, leaning against the corridor wall, finally looking slightly less composed than she had inside. "Your hands are shaking," Soraya observed. Jo looked at them. "Yeah," she said. "They do that. Adrenaline." She flexed her fingers. "Delayed. Usually hits after." "You were scared," Soraya said slowly. "Oh, absolutely," Jo said. "Those guys were enormous." Soraya stared at her. "Then why?" "Because being scared," Jo said, "like this was perfectly simple, doesn't mean you stop." Soraya's bioluminescence settled into a long, slow, warm amber. The Velhari color for something that doesn't have a name yet, but sits somewhere between gratitude and "I think I understand you now." She didn't say anything else. She didn't have to. Kalen ate lunch at Jo's table the next day, and the day after that, and every day for the rest of the semester. Nobody knocked her tray again.